On a scale from 1 to 10, my friend, you're fucked. In lack of other words, I'd say you're fucked. You are, as they say in Japanese, fucked from the head down to the knees. I am sorry to inform you, you are fundamentally fucked. Fundamentally fucked. Fundamentally fucked. Fundamentally fucked. You're fucked. So fucked. Fundamentally fucked. Fundamentally fucked. You're fucked. So fucked. Fundamentally fucked. Fucked. On a scale from 1 to 10, my friend, you're fucked. In lack of other words, I'd say you're fucked. I don't think you understand by far how completely super fucked you are. You are Hitler in the bunker, fucked. You are fundamentally fucked. Fundamentally fucked. Fundamentally fucked. You're fucked. So fucked. Fundamentally fucked. Fundamentally fucked. You're fucked. Fundamentally fucked. You're fucked. So fucked. You're fucked. Fundamentally fucked. Fundamentally fucked. You're fucked.
Ooh, I can pin comments on YouTube, I forgot. Don't forget to give it a dislike. So if you wound up here and you're staying, you're fucked up. Got some stuff to watch. Oh yeah. Badass song. I found it We're watching stuff. Oh yeah. What? Now, why isn't my microphone like super loud now? Like, it's fucking weird. I don't know. I don't know what the fuck is happening. Alright. So my sister sent me this song because her and her, or my brother-in-law, her husband, They were fighting in a car, or in the car, not a car, and they got mad at each other. What? It's some petty, stupid bullshit. They were quiet, and then I guess her best friend added this song to their playlist or something, and she didn't know it. And it's actually a song about my life. Like, weirdly enough, what happened to me today. So let's take a listen.
I got my balls to my butthole, yeah. Oh my God, what did I do? I can't take a dump, cause now my balls are blocking up my butthole. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice,
I glued my balls to my butthole.
good God, I pulled too hard, now my scrotum's stretched out like a fucking yard. Oh God, I glue my balls to my butthole, baby. Oh my God, what did I do? I can't take a dump, cause now my balls are blocking up my butthole. My lady doesn't want a life of watching her man use a butter knife. Face down, ass up, try and saw off his sack. Oh baby, fucking please just take me back. I glue my balls to my butthole, baby. Oh my God,
What did I do?
I can't take a dump, cause now my balls are blocking up my butthole. Fool me once, shame on you.
You gotta bring in the horns now too.
Twice, shame on blue. Good God, I pulled too hard. Now my scrotum's stretched out like a fucking yard. Glued my ball. It was inevitable, baby. This could have happened to anyone.
It could.
Life is just
It could.
fun like
It
that.
could happen to anyone. Don't judge.
I glue my balls to my butthole, baby. Oh my God, what did I do? I can't take a dump, cause now my balls are blocking up my butthole. Good God, I pulled too hard, now my scrotum's stretched out like a fucking yard.
It's nearly over.
I pulled too hard, now my scrotum's stretched out like a fucking yard.
Little trumpet flare at the end. I glued my balls to my butthole. Again. That's the funniest part. It's again. It's again. So he must have done it at least once before, obviously. Oh my god, that is the best song ever created by mankind. It's all downhill from here. We're gonna watch Forever 21. I guess they're going bankrupt. Pretty much all malls are going bankrupt. There's a few of these that I haven't seen, even like from a year ago. It's like, what the fuck is Retail Archaeology up to? Maybe he glued his balls to his butthole. I don't quite know. Let me put on some like background music. Well, he has background music. All right, let's see. Forever 21 bankrupt. Let's go. His videos are better than mine. Everyone's videos are better than mine. Let's go.
Hello everyone and welcome to Retail Archaeology. In this episode we'll be taking a look at Forever 21. And we'll take a look at two locations. This first one is at Scottsdale Fashion Square Mall. I did a video back in 2019 covering the history of Forever 21 and also talking about their impending bankruptcy. Forever 21 did end up filing for bankruptcy in 2019, a few weeks after I did that video.
I'm gonna add them to
I
Spotify.
figured now would be a good time for an update video on Forever 21 because on March 17th, 2025,
We'll
they
listen to
filed
them
for
later.
bankruptcy a second time.
Oh,
and
that's
this
not
time
good.
they will be closing all of their locations in the United States.
Damn.
Looks like
the
even
end of
a
an era.
store in a fancy mall like Scottsdale Fashion Square isn't immune from people leaving their garbage around.
Shit.
Or just leaving stuff on the
Five
floor in
Guys, though.
general. Although this still does look a lot
Looks
nicer
good.
than the Forever 21 store that I covered in my first video. That location's no longer open. It was closed during the round of store closures after the first bankruptcy.
We're losing the malls, man.
After that first bankruptcy,
still-
Forever 21 was purchased in 2020.
That's interesting though. I mean, the malls here in DFW are still like pretty thriving, but I mean, for how long, you know?
by a group of 3 investors: Simon Property Group, Brookfield Properties, and Authentic Brands Group. Simon Property Group and Brookfield Properties were motivated to try and save Forever 21 because there are a lot of Forever 21 stores located in their malls. Unfortunately for everybody involved, the pandemic happened shortly after that, and that really caused a lot of problems for malls for a few years, and it definitely did not help Forever 21. Another thing that's really hurt Forever 21 is competition, specifically on the internet.
Yeah.
I often say that it's a lazy statement to say that Amazon and the internet has killed retail when it's really a lot of factors that have contributed to it.
Yeah,
but for Forever 21 specifically, it really is internet competition that's hurting them, specifically from places like Shein and Temu.
The thing is, I just downloaded Temu, and it's like, they're sending me messages like, oh, you can buy 47 dresses for $1. I don't know why dresses. I guess they think I'm a girl or something. I don't know. Anyway. Yeah, so that's where I never used Temu before, but like they have some weird shit on there. It's weird. Don't know about that.
It seems like those 2 online retailers really have conquered the fast fashion retail segment. Fast fashion is stuff that is produced as cheaply as possible and sold for the lowest price possible. Yeah. Temu and Shein don't have the added overhead of running brick and mortar retail locations and having retail employees. So I can see how it's become pretty much impossible at this point for Forever 21 to compete with them.
See, what's really weird to me is that I would have bet money that like clothing stores would wait, what the fuck? What the fuck was that? I would have bet money that clothing stores would have survived like the online ordering thing, because like when you go to, like, at least for me, and I don't get them very often clothes, but like I would want to go and try them on, especially like pants or something. Maybe not shirts, like order an large shirt, extra large shirt, whatever. But like stuff, I would think that people would want to try them on, but I mean, I guess not. Maybe they're just rolling the dice, or they know, like, I don't know, because shit is like slightly different from whoever produces them. I don't know. It's weird.
And they've said as much in their bankruptcy filing. Fast fashion is pretty much a garbage industry in that they produce a lot of actual garbage that fills landfills. So less fast fashion retailers is probably better for the environment in general. But I also recognize that Forever 21 holds a lot of nostalgia for a lot of millennials, and I thought it was important to document what their stores look like.
I mean, it does for me, although I'm like, the store is not positioned at me, but like when me and my cousin, she would always go in there and take me in there and make me wait around and stuff. So it's like, I hated it, but it's like, okay, well, it was a thing in my childhood.
Time before they're gone forever. There's things like the sparkly checker print floor that are just quintessentially Forever 21, along with the framed accessory sections. The footage of this store is from a few weeks before the actual bankruptcy filing. The footage of the next location we take a look at is from 1 day before the bankruptcy filing.
Okay.
But before we check out that second location, I did want to take a little bit of a look at Scottsdale Fashion Square Mall, just because I don't make it out here very often. And I wanted to show that even though the Forever 21 at this mall is closing, this is not by any means a dead mall.
Yeah, that's cool.
The footage you're looking at here is from just a few hours before closing on a Sunday, and the mall is still pretty lively.
Busy, yeah.
It is also a pretty cool mall just to look at.
3 stories.
This part here that's 3 floors is one of the areas that hasn't been remodeled yet, so it still has the brass railings, which I love.
Oh, yeah.
And there's also a lot of skylights in this mall. It does seem like this mall is constantly in a state of being remodeled. It has several wings, and it seems like once they finish remodeling one, they move on to the next one, and then everything just kind of loops again with the remodeling. You can tell this is a remodeled area because the brass railings are gone. Now let's go take a look at our second Forever 21 location.
Swarovski? What the fuck is that?
The second Forever 21 location will be taking a look at Santan Village in Gilbert, Arizona.
We got Pond Cam?
This mall has a lot of water features that we'll take a look at the end of the video. But
Yeah,
first,
fountain
let's go
cam.
ahead and head into the Forever 21.
Gotta
A
have that
few
fountain
weeks
cam.
before the bankruptcy filing, Forever 21 had announced that they would be closing several stores, and they put out a store closure list. And
Oh,
this
I guess they do
location
have
was
men's
not
stuff.
on that
Hmm,
original
okay.
store closure list. So I was surprised to find store closing signs all over, and then I realized that a bankruptcy must be inevitable if this location is now closing, but it wasn't on the original closure list. And then they ended up filing for bankruptcy a day after I was here. This location was also featured in my video back in 2019, and back then when I visited this store, it looked very similar to this, but it was really dirty. There was a lot of dust all over fixtures, and there were cobwebs all over the place, but during this visit, I noticed that they had cleaned things up quite a bit. Even though all of the Forever 21 stores are closing, that doesn't mean that the name will go away forever. During the bankruptcy proceedings, the owners are still seeking buyers for Forever 21, so it is possible that somebody could swoop in the last minute and purchase Forever 21 and save some of the stores. Something
Ow.
similar happened with Big
Yow.
Lots recently, where all of the Big Lot stores were closing, but a buyer did swoop in at the last minute and plans to keep some Big Lot stores
There's a Big Lot store that's near my work, and they're still open.
Something similar also happened with Charlotte Russe, another fashion retailer. They had closed all of their locations, and then somebody purchased Charlotte Russe, and within less than a year, Charlotte Russe stores were popping up again. If nobody does purchase Forever 21, the current owners have also indicated that they may use the intellectual property to start up a online retail business to compete with Shein and Temu. Personally, I think that's the more likely scenario.
What the fuck are
It will-
those glasses? The fuck? Those are weird looking glasses right there. They don't look comfortable at all.
Be interesting to see how malls fill the new empty space from Forever 21 stores closing. Forever 21 stores aren't huge, like they're not anchor-sized stores usually, but they're not small either. And the last thing malls need right now is more empty spaces.
Yeah.
If you want to check out Forever 21 before they all close, you don't have much time left. Forever 21 plans to have all of their brick and mortar stores closed by May 1st, and some of them will actually be
About a
closed by
month.
April 1st.
Well,
I'm
that's
guessing
in
those are some
a
of the
couple
stores
days.
that started closing sales a few weeks before the bankruptcy. Personally, I don't have a lot of nostalgia for Forever 21, and I think, like I mentioned earlier, it's probably for the best that a lot of this fast fashion stuff goes away, but I have felt that their stores always have kind of had their own character, and I think it is worth capturing because once these Forever 21 stores are gone, I don't think there'll really be stores like this ever again. Although it would be ironic
End of
in
an era.
2 years if Shein and Temu stores started popping up in malls. I don't think that'll ever happen, though. I also think that people are starting to realize, with the economy being so uncertain and weird, that it is more cost effective to spend a few extra dollars on a piece of clothing rather than buy something cheap that's not going to survive more than 2 trips to a washing machine. What are your thoughts on Forever 21, though? Is it a store that you shopped at regularly, or maybe you shopped at in the past when you were younger? And also, what are your thoughts on fast fashion? Personally, I
don't
think it's an
even know.
industry that needs to go away.
I didn't even know that was an
being said,
industry.
it is still sad to watch a 41-year-old mall retailer whose stores actually had some character disappear forever.
Damn.
I'm not the target audience for Forever 21 stores, but one good thing I can say about them is, unlike a lot of other retailers, they haven't succumbed to making everything just boring and beige. But
Yeah.
that's going to wrap up this final look at Forever 21 stores.
Now we
But
need fountain
before we
cam.
wrap up the video, let's head on out of this location and we'll take a look at the fountains and water features that are just right outside.
Fountain cam. That's the best part.
Right outside the Forever 21 we just took a look at, there is a set of water features. For example, this running little raised canal thing with little fountains, and then there's also a big fountain here in the center.
Come
If
on.
you've watched the channel long enough,
Come
you know that I'm
on.
a big fan of fountains.
Yes. Yes. That's the best part.
And I really like the tile mosaic work inside the large fountain here, although you can see that
It's
some
very
of the tile
good.
is starting to crack and fall off.
Are you real? No. I'm fake. Never real to begin
And
with.
here's a look
Totally
inside
AI.
one of the little raised canal things. A lot of the videos on my channel
have
can
the
get
fountain
kind
cam.
of depressing since they cover subjects like retailers closing forever, so I thought it would be interesting for this one to try and wrap it up with something a little bit more calming and soothing. I've also always wanted to get footage of these water features because you can see that they're starting to show their
Slightly
age.
dirty.
A lot of times malls have a habit of just getting rid of fountains rather than repairing them.
That sucks.
This is where we'll wrap up the video though.
It's a
As
good
always,
video.
Everyone, thanks for watching.
I love Retail Archaeology's channel. He is so good. There's a few more I skipped for whatever reason. Let's see. Big Lots is in big trouble. I actually want to see that because I have a Big Lots by where I work. Jesus. It's loud as fuck.
Hello everyone and welcome to Retail Archaeology. In this episode we'll be taking a look at Big Lots. And if this store looks familiar, it's the same store that was in the video I did about a year and a half ago covering the history of Big Lots and some of
I
the
watched
signs
that
that they may
one
have been headed for trouble.
a while ago.
Well, as you can
Probably a
see
year
from
and a
this
half ago.
footage, this store is now liquidating. In their most recent quarterly sales report back in June, they had announced they would be closing 40 stores due to a 10% decrease in sales, which resulted in a $205 million loss for the quarter.
Jesus
Shortly
Christ.
after that, the number of
so
stores
much money.
closing was increased to 150 locations, and now in a recent regulatory filing, Big Lots has announced they're actually closing 315 locations, which is about a quarter of their 1,389 stores.
Okay, this was 7 months ago, and the Big Lots near me is definitely still open. So clearly it didn't catch the one by my work.
Big Lots made some interesting statements in that regulatory filing as well, such as that there's a significant likelihood of them defaulting on a loan from 2022, and that the company has substantial doubt about the company's ability to remain operational. In that video from a year and a half ago, I had asked the question, is Big Lots in big trouble? I think we have the answer now. What I find interesting
Yeah.
about this particular location is that it's been liquidating for a couple of weeks now, but it doesn't really look like it. There's not a ton
It's
of
a
empty
bunch of
shelves.
shit
There's
everywhere.
a couple of places where things look picked over, but for the most part, the store looks just as stocked as it did when I covered it a year and a half ago. I'm also surprised that they're only offering 5, 10, and 20% off things at this point. This area here, like the laundry detergent and fabric softener, this looks like one of the areas that got hit hard pretty quick when the closing sale started. But really,
They have like decent
everything else
furniture.
looks just like it did before, just with store closing signs hanging all over the place. There is some empty end caps here and there, but that was already like that
Fuck
before they
LaCroix.
started closing the store.
Whenever
Something
I
that
see
found
LaCroix,
annoying about this
I'm like, I want to try that again. Why did I hate that? And then I try it and it's fucking, don't like it. And then I put it back and inevitably like 6 months to a year later, I eye it again. I'm like, why did I hate that? Then I get one. It's a vicious cycle.
particular store closing sale is that they have all these signs hanging down saying nothing held back, store closing, but when I started looking at the food and grocery items, I noticed these signs hanging all over explaining that the store closing deals don't apply to any of this stuff, that it's just their regular everyday low prices on all of this stuff. So nothing held back is a lie.
Yeah,
And
cookies
also their
and
everyday
cream.
low prices on this
oatmeal?
stuff really aren't any lower than prices at the grocery store, and I think that's part of what Big Lots' problem is. I think a lot of people think of Big Lots as a store where you go to buy candy and look for discount closeouts and maybe purchase some cheap furniture.
Yeah.
Well, people don't really have a lot of extra money right now because they're spending so much money on things like food and groceries that they just don't have the extra money to go deal shopping at Big Lots.
True.
With them already having trouble getting people to come into the stores, charging the same prices on grocery items as the grocery stores, and also the furniture not being that cheap anymore either, isn't helping them at all. It seems counterintuitive that in a time when people's dollars are really being stretched that discount retailers would be struggling, but discount retailers really haven't been discount retailers for a long time. It just seems like places like Big Lots and Family Dollar and Dollar General really aren't any cheaper than places like Walmart or Target.
I haven't
Especially
been to a
on
Dollar
things like
General
grocery items,
or dollar
health
store
and
in a
beauty
long
stuff,
while.
household goods. You might find some deals on cheap headphones or something like that, or a $20 George Foreman grill. But other than that,
Got
you're not
these
really saving that much
new
money anymore
earbuds.
shopping at
Pretty
places
good too.
like these.
I like them.
Now, I have to admit, they almost got me on the George Foreman grill here because I've never had one of these before.
Dude, I use mine all the
And
time.
For $20
Or I did,
plus
anyway.
5% off, it almost seemed like it would be fun just to get and play with, but I can think
I
of
used mine
20 different
all
things that
the
I
time.
could spend that money on that would be a better use of it. I think another sign that Big Lots is in big trouble is this particular liquidation sale. This store has been doing a closing sale for a few weeks now, and I really expected it to be more picked over when I came in here. This was filmed on the weekend in the afternoon, and I was surprised how empty the store was.
See where
And
the
it's not
storm
like
is.
it's not
supposed to
obvious that they're having a
storm tonight.
liquidation sale. They've got signs hanging all over the shopping center, and they're even making people stand out in the heat holding those big signs saying store closing. But still, nobody's even really coming in here.
Blaze Star?
If
Wait a
they
minute.
can't-
Hold on. Why did I not hear about this?
A once-in-a-lifetime cosmic explosion could
Could.
light up the night sky tonight. Here's why you won't want to miss it.
Interesting.
NASA
Once every
believes the
75
Blaze
years.
Star, also known as T. Coronae Borealis, is on the verge of a spectacular eruption. It happens roughly every 79 years, and the last one was 80 years ago.
Wait,
So
what
it's
the fuck is a
overdue.
Blaze Star?
Lately, the star has been showing signs it's close to blowing, and experts predict today is the day. If it doesn't happen as planned, November 10th is the next most likely day of eruption.
What the fuck
You can
is a
find the
Blaze
Blaze
Star?
by first finding the Big Dipper,
Yeah?
and then following its handle off to the left.
What the fuck is a Blaze Star? I've spent my life dedicated to this shit. What the fuck is a Blaze Star? Is it a Type 1A supernova? Yes, okay. Call it a fucking Type 1A supernova, not a fucking Blaze Star. That's stupid. Let me make sure. I mean, it's a white dwarf around there. Or it's a nova, not a supernova. That's my bad. It's a regular nova. Supernova actually destroys the star itself, but a nova doesn't. But call it a nova, goddammit. Yeah, recurrent nova. It is sometimes nicknamed the Blaze Star. No, it's literally fucking always always called a Blaze Star, and that bothers the fuck out of me. Anyway, okay.
Can't even get people into their stores for liquidation sales. I think they've got a lot of problems ahead of them. Usually at these store liquidation sales, every week or two, they'll kind of increase the % off on everything. So I'm interested to see what that magic number is going to be to get people to come in here and clear out the store.
Ooh.
Now here's some of the stuff that I like to look at when I'm at Big Lots, stuff like the cheap toys and things.
Pokemon!
And I noticed they actually did have some
Pikachu.
officially licensed Pokemon stuff, but I think it's just Pikachu there.
Yeah, well.
I'm pretty sure all of
Can't
these
win 'em
other
all.
plushies are just generic animals and things like that and not any specific characters. I did get a good laugh when I looked at this side of the display though, because I noticed that they still had these repackaged Pokemon cards from when I was here a year and a half ago. And it doesn't look like a whole lot of them have moved.
How much
And then
are
I
they?
also noticed that
$6?
they still have
That.
this FIFA World Cup 2022 stuff down here, specifically this sticker book from Panini, and they had some of the stickers as well for it. I think it's safe to say that any FIFA World Cup 2022 stuff that hasn't moved yet is probably dead stock and just needs to be dropped off at the thrift store.
Trash.
I also like looking at the electronics section because I do sometimes look at Big Lots for universal remotes when I'm trying to get like an old CRT television or something working. Most of the time when I find those, they don't have the remotes anymore. But otherwise, it's just a lot of
Party lights.
overpriced
I mean,
HDMI cables. None of this stuff is
the
really
light strip
that great of a
may be
deal,
good.
since it's all kind of cheap crap anyways. So even the 20% off, I don't think makes any of this worth it.
What about the magnet box and
But
the
if you do
Sorny?
need an alarm clock, they've got tons of alarm clocks.
I do not need one of those.
Yeah, this is all pretty much the same crap that was here a year and a half ago. This caught my eye just because I don't know who Dabney Lee is, and I tried to look it up, and I'm still not quite sure who Dabney Lee is, but
Who is Dabney
this cheap
Lee?
mouse is kind of interesting. It looks like this might be some closeout stock, but I can't imagine they were trying to charge more than $10 for this anywhere else. This thing was so light. Now, this is horrifying. Carpool karaoke. If you ever pull something like this out in my car, I'm kicking you out. And here's the cheap Switch stuff that they've had sitting here since the Switch was new.
Jesus.
I'm always amazed.
So Dabney Lee apparently is. Let's not be friends. Don't need those in my life right now. So it's some kind of zebra person? Don't know. A lifestyle brand that elevates the looks of everyday products with bold prints, cheeky type. What the fuck does that mean? Cheeky type and pops of vibrant color. Founder and designer Dabney Lee. She launched the company in 2004. Her just want to have fun attitude has inspired designs for your home. That wasn't a very... Look, it's the most replayed. The Dabney Lee and the Carpool Karaoke. Yeah, look at this. It's definitely fun, I guess. It has different colored lines or something. Okay.
Got some cheap wrestling toys. It's an interesting toy section. It's better than the toy section in most grocery stores, but not as good at places like Target and Walmart. And obviously, most of this stuff is closeout, like this Disney Villains thing.
They have a Candyland pop.
This is another
oh my
section
God.
that I was kind of
Okay.
surprised wasn't more picked
Weird.
over than this, though. A lot of toys at store liquidation sales usually go pretty quickly. And here's those G.I. Joe not Legos that I saw in the previous video that I called bootleg, and it turns out those are officially licensed by Hasbro, so I have to correct myself on that. Something I was interested in
Spreading
purchasing
misinformation.
was patio chairs. I need a couple of new ones, but I think I'm just going to come back in a couple of weeks and roll my dice and see if I can get these cheaper since there's so many of them sitting here. And here's the DVDs and Blu-rays, and oh look, another section that's being held back in the Nothing Held Back store liquidation sale. It's really annoying. I guess they plan on moving some of that stuff like the food and DVDs to the stores that are remaining open, but I'm honestly not sure how many stores are going to remain open in the future. What are your thoughts on Big Lots, though? Do you think
like
they
Big
have a
Lots.
chance to
They're
turn
okay.
things around?
Probably
Let me
not.
know down in the comments below. As
Wouldn't-
always, everyone,
Wouldn't recommend
thanks
it.
for watching.
Well, actually, I would. I like Big Lots. I don't want to shit on them too hard. Okay, let's watch some other weird shit. The infamous Python Pit disaster, I think. Of course, Smokey's playing Factorio. Smokey's always playing Factorio. What happened to this? I've never heard of this. The
On
the
April
death
the
of
2nd,
Jason
2011, 3-year-old
Dansby?
Jason Dansby
Oh, man, that
arrived at Go
sucks.
Bananas, an indoor
This is not going to be fun. Hey, what's going on?
family entertainment center in Norridge, Illinois, for what was meant to be a fun day out with his family.
It's not going to be
Among
fun.
the many rides and arcade games that day was the star attraction known as the Python Pit, a small
Uh-oh.
indoor roller coaster designed for children. Jason and his twin brother boarded the ride, unaware that this moment would end in tragedy. What followed was a horrific and brutal event that left witnesses traumatized. It also shook the community, raising serious questions about amusement ride safety in the state of Illinois as a whole. So what exactly happened that day? Let's talk about
Oh,
it.
look, they have...
Illinois
hold
as
on.
a whole. So what?
Look, it's just a blank white sign that says pizza.
exactly happened that day?
Okay.
Let's talk about it. This is the infamous death.
That makes you
of
really
Jason
want pizza.
Dansby.
Pizza.
Go Bananas was an indoor family entertainment center located on North Harlem Avenue in Norwich, Illinois.
Why does that make
The
me
center
laugh
first
so much?
opened its doors in
It says pizza.
1997 under the original
Jeepers.
name Jeepers and operated under this branding until 2005 when it was rebranded
I've
as Go
literally
Bananas.
never
It was a
heard
small
of
indoor Chuck E. Cheese style establishment,
that
often holding
at all.
children's birthday parties. On April the 2nd of 2011, Jason Dansby and his family were there for a fun day out. Jason, who was never seen without his twin brother, was known as being a happy and kind boy
shit.
and
He
was
was a
excited
twin?
to spend the day at the centre. This is because throughout its years of operation, Go
Fuck.
Bananas offered a variety
Somehow
of
that makes it
attractions designed
worse.
to cater for children, including arcades, bumper cars, and a train ride.
I mean, it looks
However,
fun, I
their
guess.
start attraction for children was its
Why
indoor
not?
roller coaster, the Python Pit. The Python Pit was one of the most popular attractions for young children at Go Bananas. Manufactured by E&F Miller Industries, it was a steel sit-down coaster featuring an 11.5 single helix layout that operated in a counterclockwise direction.
He's like, it has 7 inversions and a cobra roll. That would be so fucking... Oh, that would be amazing.
The ride was designed to be accessible for very young children with a maximum speed of around
See,
15.7 miles per
That's why they didn't put 8 inversions. It's got to be for children. Just 7 upside down loops or corkscrews or what.
hour, and without any inversions or extreme
Yeah,
drops.
lies.
Regarding the height requirements for the Python Pit at Go Bananas,
7
there was
inversions.
indeed a restriction in place.
Is
The
what
ride
I'm going to
was
tell
intended for
myself.
younger children, but required that they meet a minimum height to ensure safety. While specific height restrictions could vary from one location to another, it was common for the ride to have a minimum height requirement of 42 inches, and those below this height would have to ride with an
It's what,
adult.
like
At
3
the time,
and some odd
Jason
feet?
Dansby was 40 inches tall,
Or-
and he was let onto the
yeah.
ride. However, I found that other owners of this type of ride in other locations like Michigan and Virginia, operators increased the height requirements after believing the ride wasn't safe for very small children.
Oh, that's
The
not
ride
good.
was equipped with a lap bar restraint, a standard safety feature in roller coasters of this nature, but that was it. Again, it was found that a ride operator in Kansas took additional precautions by installing seatbelts onto the ride after not thinking the lap bar was enough. Nonetheless, in the guidelines, the manufacturer specified a minimum of 36 inches.
That
and
looks
the
like
ride had passed
fun.
safety
I mean, for a
inspections, so
kid,
business remained as per usual.
it's whatever.
This was until April the 2nd
I
of
don't hate it.
2011, when a horrific incident would shock the community of Norwich to the core.
Uh-oh.
After being at the play centre for a few hours, Jason and his twin brother boarded the Python Pit roller coaster at around 5 PM, sitting next to each other. Jason's mother asked if she needed to accompany the two
Don't
boys
like the
as
dark,
ride
ominous
went round,
music.
but she was told by a Go Bananas worker that she did not have to, so she proceeded to watch from the side with her husband. Jason was by all means excited according to reports, and the ride operator checked his restraints, and the ride set off.
Oh, shit.
However, as the boys went around the track, something went terribly wrong. As the ride commenced, Jason became visibly distressed, crying out for his mother and signaling to stop the ride. Despite
Well.
his agitation, the coaster continued its course.
Ain't no stopping
During the
it.
second lap, Jason managed to free himself from the safety harness and stood up in his car, facing passengers in the car behind him. Witnesses, the Shahadi family seated directly behind Jason, saw him in distress and immediately began shouting for ride operators to halt the coaster.
You
Witnesses
can't.
believed it was going too fast.
It's like, stop the coaster that's moving by gravity. Like, that's not a thing, I'm pretty sure. You gonna, like, fucking reverse gravity or something?
And the young teenager who was operating the ride was now trying to stop it, but was unable to do so, and the Python Pit proceeded into its third lap. In a desperate attempt to assist, members of the family leaned forward trying to calm Jason and encourage him to
Like,
sit
grab
back
him
down.
or some shit.
Tragically, during this lap, Jason lost his balance and fell between the first and second cars of the moving coaster. At this point, the room was in full panic mode. The
But,
ride
like,
operator was still
is it the coaster's fault? I mean, like, to me, it's a coaster's fault if like it derails or something, or the lap bar comes up. It just said he managed to free himself from the lap bar. It didn't say he like the lap bar lost integrity or anything like that. So I don't know. I don't know.
Still trying to stop the ride, but it wasn't working and it continued into its fourth lap. It was during this lap that passengers felt the roller coaster pass over Jason's body. Shockingly, the ride persisted for a fifth and final lap,
God
during
damn.
which the cars made contact with Jason again
Oh my
before
God,
he
that's
fell 4 feet to the
bad.
ground and the Python pit came to a stop. This all happened right.
So he fell in between the cars, didn't fall on the ground. He got caught on the rails and it went over him twice more. And then he fell to Jesus
in front of
fucking
Jason's
Christ.
distraught parents, who were unable to do anything. Emergency responders were called to the scene, but Jason was pronounced dead from his injuries.
Yep.
Go Bananas was immediately closed down, and an investigation was launched.
It's
Following the incident, Norwich Chief of Police James Jobe released a statement saying, "Details are still being worked out, but it looks like the boy was in the front car with his brother and he
Yeah.
managed to get free from the safety bar."
I don't
He went on to say, "He stood up but fell backwards and landed in the joint between the first car and the second car. Then he fell to the floor with serious head injuries. He was declared dead at the scene." According to the medical examiner's office,
he fell to the what he fell between the first car and the second car, the join between. So that's what. Why did it say like it ran over his body twice? Then that doesn't make sense. If he was in the join, that's where they hook up. How could they run over him if he's not under the car? I don't know. That doesn't make sense to me. Unless if I don't know what the join is, I assume it's the thing that links to cars. That's where I don't know.
he was declared dead at the scene.
But yeah.
According to the medical
Either way.
examiner's office, the coroner's report stated that Jason had died from multiple injuries after being struck by the roller coaster. This included severe head injuries from the impact. Teams then investigated the ride itself, but found nothing out of the ordinary. The restraints worked properly,
Yeah.
and it passed all inspections.
It's not
The
the
height
coaster's
requirements
fault.
were met, and it was chalked up as an accidental death, but
Yeah.
this didn't sit right with some, and many blame the state of Illinois itself for Jason's death.
Why?
This is because
it's a kid that fucking wouldn't sit. He died or whatever, but I'm just saying it's a kid that wouldn't sit down in his car, and there's only so much you can do to control a kid. Like, I don't know. I don't know.
the state of Illinois lacked regulations to ensure amusement rides were designed to keep small children secure. Unlike other states, it did not require engineers to review ride designs or enforce stricter height and restraint requirements, instead leaving those decisions to the manufacturers. This lack of oversight may have contributed to Jason's ability to escape the restraint, leading to his tragic death. As stated before, some operators of the Python Pit had already raised concerns about its safety, and they spoke out during the investigation. In Michigan, Rosa Yazigi increased the minimum height requirement for children riding alone from 42 inches to 48. A Virginia
Sure, I
Entertainment Center
guess.
set its height limit at 46, whilst a Kansas location added seatbelts as an extra precaution. These changes were voluntary, and Illinois took no such measures. The state had consistently approved the Python
Yeah.
Pit during annual inspections,
It didn't
which
do
focused
nothing
only
wrong.
on whether
dude.
a
Like,
rider
I don't
met
know.
manufacturer's specifications,
The kid
not on evaluating the
got
safety of
free.
its design.
Like,
After Jason's death, Illinois investigators found no mechanical issues with the ride. However, Go Banana's owner, Gerald Marks, was charged with failing to provide maintenance records, a misdemeanor under the state ride safety laws. He was fined and placed under court supervision. It was also argued by some ride inspectors that children that size couldn't be expected to secure themselves. And although they tried to get in contact with the manufacturer of the
they're not supposed to secure themselves. They said that the lap bar went down and the guy checked it and it was secure. They're not like relying on this fucking however old he was, like 3-year-old or whatever. The person checked it. Like it sucks, but it's I I don't think it's the coaster's fault.
roller coaster, and attempts to contact them were unsuccessful. As stated in the Chicago Tribune, after the Norwich accident, Go Bananas paid a $3.1 million settlement in a civil
Jesus.
suit brought by Jason's family, according to court records. Another witness to the accident, Marion Grant, filed a lawsuit claiming emotional distress after trying to help Jason after he was struck by the roller coaster. And although no details were released on her case, I did find this on Reddit, which may explain it. This has to be taken with a grain of salt and is quite graphic. It
Okay.
reads, I had an ex-girlfriend of mine explain an incident which occurred at a facility similar to Chuck E. Cheese. This happened in or around Chicago, Illinois. Apparently, this place had a kiddie roller coaster, like the small ones you see at state fairs. Apparently some young kid, pre-teen age, got out of his restraints in the front car and fell out forward
I would
onto
say
the tracks.
3 is
The
preteen.
coaster proceeded to roll right over him, cutting him in half and splattering
Jesus.
his blood and guts all over everyone in the splash zone of the ride. This is where Marion was.
Jesus,
She
fuck.
heard about this from one of her friends who apparently worked there when this happened and witnessed the whole thing. According to her, his retelling of the incident was done with a blank zombie-like 1,000-yard stare. Throughout all of this, business owner Gerald Marks denied any wrongdoing. The state cited Go Bananas for poor record keeping, but faulted no one in Jason's
Yeah,
death.
he
besides Jason
didn't do
himself.
anything wrong.
Kirshner, a personal injury attorney, claimed the state had failed him. He said, this kid should not have died, and that scares the hell out of me because nothing has changed. The only thing here is we are saying, well, that kid shouldn't have stood up. What happens when the next kid stands up?
Its parents shouldn't let him ride it if they know that he's going to be doing that. Like, I mean, how do you control that? You can't. I mean, do you like put like shackles on him and shackle his arms down to the chair where he can't move at all? Like I mean, yeah, you could. How far do you want to go with it? Like, I don't know.
After the lawsuit was settled,
It may be
Go
fucked
Bananas
up, but I
reopened
don't.
the Python pit, and
Yeah.
no safety changes were ever made. Jason was remembered fondly by his family. His great uncle would say he was a fun child and had more spirit and joy than anyone in the world. Go Bananas would reopen, but after a series of incidents and a staggering 30 call-outs to the police between 2015 and 2016, Go Bananas would eventually close down in 2020.
No more going
May
for
Jason
bananas.
rest in peace.
Damn.
As always, this is
Yeah, I mean that's fucking awful, but I don't think it was their fault in any way, shape, or form. If indeed the lap bar was still down, he was secured. Little kids could fucking get out of anything, like goddamn, like greased up piglets running around sometimes. Here's another one, another fun story. The infamous Lightning Loops disaster. This is probably not good either. The death of Karen Brown.
On June the 17th, 1987, 19-year-old Karen Brown arrived at Six Flags Great Adventure in Jackson, New Jersey, with her boyfriend and friends
1967?
for what was meant to be a fun day at the park. Like thousands of visitors that summer, they were drawn to the park's biggest attractions,
Oh, yeah.
one of them being the innovative Lightning Loops roller coaster. However, that afternoon, as Karen took her seat on the coaster, something went terribly wrong. Within moments, what began as an
looks
ordinary ride
wild.
would turn into a devastating tragedy that would spark an investigation, raise serious concerns about safety procedures, and leave a lasting impact on the park's history. But what exactly happened that day? Let's talk about it. This is the infamous death of Karen Brown.
Okay. That looks like a wild coaster. Holy shit. It's like a pretzel.
Six Flags Great Adventure, located in Jackson, New Jersey, opened its gates to the public on July the 1st, 1974. Conceived by businessman Warner Lee Roy, the park was originally envisioned as part of a larger entertainment complex.
That man's suit is... I don't know what it is, but it's fucking something, that's for sure.
Called the
Holy
Great Adventure
shit.
Entertainment and Recreation Complex. This idea would have included a resort, hotels, and other attractions. While those plans were never fully utilised, the park itself grew into a major destination very quickly. In its early years, Great Adventure was home to a mix of classic amusement rides, a drive-through safari, and theatrical shows, but it quickly became clear that the park needed innovative roller coasters to compete with industry giants like Cedar Point and Magic Mountain.
Oh yeah.
In 1977, Six Flags purchased Great Adventure, marking the start of a new era. Under Six Flags ownership, the park expanded
Ooh.
rapidly, adding larger and more intense roller coasters to attract bigger crowds, and the first of these projects was Lightning Loops.
It's lightning, not lightning. It's lightning. Get that shit right. There's no G on there.
Lightning Loops was a groundbreaking roller coaster when it opened in June of 1978. Designed by Ron Toomer and manufactured by Arrow Developments, it was one of the first shuttle loop coasters in the United States,
Unfortunate
offering
last
a
name.
completely new experience that immediately made it a
That looks
major draw
dope.
for the park.
That
Unlike
looks
traditional roller coasters
awesome.
that followed a continuous circuit, Lightning Loops featured two separate tracks with interlocking loops,
Cool.
making it the first interlocking dual shuttle loop coaster in the world at the time.
That's awesome.
During this time, few roller coasters had the ability to launch riders at high speeds without a traditional lift hill. Instead, Lightning Loops used a weight drop launch system, which propelled the train forward at approximately 45 miles per hour, sending riders through a vertical loop before climbing up a steep spike. As gravity took over, the train then reversed direction, racing backwards through the loop before finally returning to the station.
Huh.
This would have been unlike anything most parkgoers had ever encountered.
It's kind of like
Its twin track
Mr.
design meant
Freeze.
that the ride could operate two trains at once, adding to the excitement as
Kinda.
guests watched both loops intertwine. The ride's towering loops and dramatic launch made it a signature attraction at Six Flags Great Adventure, drawing roller coaster enthusiasts far and wide, and it
Damn.
helped cement the park's reputation as being
Old
one of the
school.
most exciting parks of its era. Lightning Loops
Old
used
school
over-the-shoulder
photos
restraints
or
to keep
video.
riders secure. They were thick, padded bars that came down
a fan.
over the rider's shoulders and locked into place. This is similar to what many looping coasters used at the time. However, the ride did not have seatbelts as a secondary restraint when it first opened. Instead, riders relied solely on the over-the-shoulder restraints to keep them in place throughout the ride.
I think
For
we
the
know
next
what's
10
going to
years,
happen.
The ride would prove its worth and stay one of the star attractions. However, this was all about to change in June of 1978, following a terrifying incident.
It's like
at the
10
park.
years or something, right?
Now,
10 years,
2 weeks
I think.
before the incident, 19-year-old Josh Nokara from New York filed a lawsuit against Six Flags Great Adventure, claiming that he had been injured badly on Lightning Loops. He had claimed to suffer severe and permanent neck and spinal injuries on the
Ooh,
ride,
I got
and
that.
this was filed on June
Not
8,
from the ride, though.
1987. In the lawsuit, the defendant
from
claimed
being
Six Flags
tall
failed to properly inspect
and
their ride,
old.
and the over-the-shoulder safety restraints were not adequate. They also claimed that the ride started and stopped too suddenly without warning. Eerily, they said the restraint used was improper
Stuff.
and in a state of
What do they call it on The Simpsons? Like the tooth chipper ride?
disrepair, causing Josh to snap back and forth, causing the injuries. The results of this case were never made public, but reading it in retrospect is quite eerie, due to what would happen that same month. 10 days after that lawsuit was filed, 19-year-old Karen Ann Mary Brown from Chester, Pennsylvania, was visiting
This one?
Wow, the tooth chipper.
Yeah, yeah. It sucks.
Me first.
You can't go on that. You have a heart condition.
Heart condition. Get out of here.
You had a quadruple bypass. You nearly died. Don't you remember?
Obviously I don't. Now if you'll get out of my way.
But it doesn't look safe. And the guy running it looks a little seedy. No offense.
None taken.
He's not just some guy, Marge.
The
He's a
tooth chipper.
carny. And part of a noble tradition. Carnies built this country. The carnival part of it, anyway. And though they may be rat-like in appearance, they are
carnival
truly
part.
kings among men.
Okay, let's go, fatty.
Yes, sir.
Darkus was a carny for a long while.
My heart!
My heart. Sudden stop. Okay, this is actually more serious. It's
the
fucked
park
up.
with her boyfriend and friends for a fun
Adding
day
some
out.
levity, goddammit.
Karen had dated her boyfriend Richard DePrince for over 4 years. He would later say, "We were just there for fun."
That man
That's
is
the
the
way it started
embodiment of
out
the
anyway.
70s.
They boarded the Lightning Loops ride at approximately 3:45 a.m.
It's like if the
According to an
70s were
article
a
in the Courier
man.
Post Trenton, trouble was apparent from the start of the ride. After Karen and her boyfriend had sat down, she was evidently struggling with her restraint system. Witnesses said that she was unable to properly get the harness to go down before the ride set off. Nevertheless, the ride started regardless and set off anyway. According to her boyfriend Richard DePrince, when the two sat down, he was able to get his safety restraint on, but it set off very quickly. He realised that Karen hadn't managed to get hers on.
Oh, fuck.
Richard's lawyer would say, as they got into the car, just as they were reaching down for the harness, the
Dude,
ride
that
took
fucking...
off. Richard
that's
was screaming
fucked.
for the operator, telling them to stop the ride. Evidently, they didn't hear him or thought he was just hollering from the excitement of the ride. Karen didn't say anything until they approached the first
Animation! Somebody built it
said,
in...
I looked over at Karen
theme
when the
park?
ride started to
Or a
move.
Planet Coaster, I
She
mean?
didn't say anything until we hit the first decline. Then she screamed, "Oh my god." Karen proceeded to fall out of the train and plunged 75 feet to the concrete below.
Ah,
Richard
damn,
DePrince had
that
to watch
is
his
so
girlfriend
high.
fall, hearing her screams until she hit the bottom.
What is
The park
75
medical
feet?
team quickly rushed to Karen as the scene was cordoned off. She was then transported to the Freehold area
25
hospital
yards?
by a first aid team, but sadly was pronounced dead on arrival.
There's no way.
Although
There's
the
no
park
fucking
remained
way.
open, lightning loops was shut down and an investigation was immediately launched. The coroner report would show that Karen died from a basilar skull fracture due to falling 75 feet.
Oh,
A basilar skull fracture
shit.
is a break at the skull's base and is often fatal due to brain and nerve damage. Investigators pretty quickly found out that Karen fell because she was not strapped into her seat. In other words, her safety restraints were not fastened, but why was this? First, they had to fully inspect the ride to see if it was working properly. They quickly ruled that nothing was out of the ordinary and said, the machinery and the restraint mechanisms of the ride were operating properly on June 17.
so that the
However,
guy just
they did
started
conclude
it
that
way
negligence
too
by park
early?
employees was to
Yeah.
blame. Investigators would
Fair
say,
enough.
our investigation showed that the proper and approved operation procedures were not followed on the day of the accident. They went on to say,
It's
the
sloppy.
procedures which are designed to ensure properly seated and restrained before the ride begins were not completely followed. DePrince, the boyfriend of Karen, was outraged with the park and said it was complete negligence on their behalf. There were, however, reports that Karen had got onto the ride too late. A former park employee who used to work on lightning loops said, the girl who was killed was trying to get under an already locked harness. I can't tell you how many times riders would exit the train and would go down the exit stairs, then quickly turn around and try to sneak back on while an attendant's back was turned. I can't say exactly what happened here, but from park guests' testimony, the woman entered the seat not from the gated entry side of the station,
Oh.
but from the opposite
If that was
exit
true?
side. Nonetheless, the attendant on the
Interesting.
platform should have paid more attention in my opinion. This was further backed up on the Great Adventure History website as they put, in June of 1987, a passenger tried to board the train after the operator had started the dispatch, which could not be stopped
I
once
thought it
the
was
motor in motion.
1978.
The rider was thrown from the train and killed in the fall from the upper loop. The ride was closed for months
Not
after the
87.
accident as safety modifications were made to the ride's control systems and the restraint system. In the aftermath, the Labour Department fined the park a total of $1,000 for violating the Ride
Jeez.
Safety Act.
That's
This was
it.
the maximum fine that was allowed.
Yeah,
Following this,
$1,000
new safety
bucks.
measures were put into place, including fiberglass panels on the interior that prohibit passengers from sitting down unless they are behind the over-the-shoulder safety harness. They also made safety checks more vigorous. After this, the ride was reopened on October the 10th, 1987, but would eventually close 5 years later, being replaced by Batman the Ride.
Hell yeah.
No one was ever criminally charged. May she rest in peace.
Yeah, that sucks.
As always, this is not an AI
But-
channel, I do everything myself.
Yeah, good for him. Support non-AI channels, dude. I'll go through and watch some of these like shorts, and they're all AI like bullshit stuff. It's awful. Okay, this is one I wanted to watch. I've never seen anything quite like this. This is the weird world of North Korean theme parks.
This is Hero at Flamingo Land in the UK, a flying type roller coaster from Italian manufacturer Zamperla. And this is the Inertia airplane car at Kaesong Youth Park in North Korea. The exact same ride in the world's most isolated country. North Korea
I would not have even expected that North Korea ever had a theme park at all. This is very enlightening.
Korea has a history with amusement parks dating back to the 1970s. Built initially for Pyongyang residents and rare visitors from friendly nations, today they seem to exist mainly as a key piece of propaganda for the highly sanitized, choreographed tours of the country given to foreign tourists.
Have fun, damn it!
Do they? Because as with everything in such a secretive nation, trying to find out the truth about these parks is incredibly difficult. I want to take a look at the strange world of North Korean theme parks and amusement parks. Uncover the history of the rides and attractions, from Cold War era rides left to rust, to new coasters showing up out of nowhere, and try and use them to gain a better understanding of the world's most infamous regime.
I'm assuming it's probably like propaganda, like you said, and the only people that are there, like people that work for the government, to like stage photos and shit. Like, oh, look how happy everybody is in North Korea. It's like, come on, North Korea. You're not fooling anyone. Come on now.
North Korea's early park history consists mainly not of theme parks, but of amusement parks. The two things are very similar. A theme park is just an amusement park where attractions are based around a theme. They even share the same Wikipedia page. The idea of themes and theming only started showing itself in the country much later on in its history. But in order to get a better view of how these places evolved over time, we need to look at both sorts of parks. The very first park built in North Korea opened in 1977, a park named the Taesongsan Fun Fair. Built at the foot of Mount Taesongsan on the outskirts of the North Korean capital, Pyongyang, this park was built in an area containing multiple tourist attractions, including the National Zoo. The park, which still operates today, contains 16 attractions, most of which are simple flat rides.
Has North Korea gotten more or less relaxed about tourists? Because I know you can go there and be a tourist, but it's like you have a guy with you like all the time. A person I used to know went there very briefly just to see. So it's like really fucking weird.
Like a rocket ship ride, a carousel, a chair swing, and bumper cars designed to look like cats. But the park also contains a flume ride, and importantly, 2 roller coasters, the first ever coasters in the country. These coasters are named Kwansong Tancha and Kwansong Yolcha, names that translate rather simply into inertia minecart and inertia train, respectively. Both coasters were made by Meisho Amusement Machines, a Japanese amusement manufacturer responsible for most, but not all, of North Korea's coasters. Although, due to North Korea's long-standing poor relations with Japan, any signs at the coaster's place of origin were removed during construction. The smaller of the 2 coasters is Kwansong Tancha, a wild mouse coaster, a very small and
have fun now
roller coaster, typically using single cars with only 1 or 2 seats. In the case of Kwansong Tancha, 2 people can fit in a car. The larger coaster, Kwansong Yolcha, is a sprawling steel coaster with a 6-car train, for a total of 36 riders. Actually, quite an impressive ride for North Korea in 1977. Not much else is really known about Taesongsan's early years, but it must have been at least a little successful, because 5 years later, in 1982, the country would build a second park on the other side of Pyongyang, named Mangyongdae Fun Fair. Mangyongdae Fun Fair was and still is the largest park in the country. Nearly 4 times the size of Taesongsan Fun Fair.
Did I hear thunder? I think I heard thunder outside.
Said by the North Korean government to be the birthplace of the country's founder, Kim Il-sung. This park is split into 2 sections, separated by a forested hill, with a cable car running through it connecting them.
Yeah,
the area
it's
near
gonna
the forest
start hitting
is
us
also
pretty
home to
hard.
a monorail ride and a small zoo,
Not
which
right
North
this
Korean
second,
tour company
but soon.
Koryo Tours refers to as a secret zoo. containing mostly domesticated animals like dogs, cats, and guinea pigs, but also some birds, like this group of vultures. The park also contains its own water park, although also according to Koryo Tours, this is almost never open. Much like Taesong-san before it,
That's the
Mangyeongdae contains
first-
its own selection of
Oh, wait.
off-the-shelf flat rides.
That's the first upside down ride I ever rode in my life. It's called the Rock and Roll, or at least a version of that.
But on a larger scale. Rocket ships, a swing ride, and a Ferris wheel all make their appearances. But Mangyeongdae also now features a double-decker
Ooh,
carousel
cool.
housed in a massive enclosure, a swinging
cool.
pirate ship ride, and
Yeah.
its own log flume ride, and of course, its own roller coasters. Now, 3 of them, still made by the same Japanese manufacturer, and still with any signs of that removed. One of these is another Wild Mouse coaster, coincidentally also just named Kwansong Tancha. But more interestingly, Mangyeongdae Fun Fair's other 2 coasters are 2 looping coasters,
It's like
a
the
single loop
flashback.
and a double loop ride. And guess what those are called? If you guessed loop coaster and double loop coaster, you'd be right. Okay, so technically
Ooh.
that's actually not their names. In fact, none of the rides in North Korea actually have names. The names I've been using so
What?
far are just the literal descriptions of the rides that appear on park maps. They do have signs above their entrances,
Look at
but
that fat
rather than
fuck.
displaying the name of the attraction, they instead hold propaganda slogans saying things like, "Thank you, dear Father Marshal Kim Jong-il," which is a bit of a mouthful, but hey, so is Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind.
Hey.
Mangyeongdae's 2 coasters
Shut
are
up.
still the largest the country has ever built, and for 1982 wouldn't have looked out of place at many theme parks in Europe. The double looping coaster in particular reminds me a lot of Mirror Looping, the coaster from the French theme park Mirapolis that I covered on this channel back in November. Lastly, of interest, Mangyeongdae does contain some of that famous North Korean anti-American
is.
sentiment,
Yeah,
with a handful
there.
of fairground games, mostly throwing games and shooting galleries, where guests are invited to shoot at targets of American soldiers, painted alongside slogans like
Jesus.
"Destroy the Invaders." In this time of relative boom for the North Korean theme park pseudo-industry, the next park would arrive in Pyongyang just 2 years later in 1984.
They got 3
Kaesong
parts?
Youth Park
God damn.
opened in a more central location in the city, next to the massive Arch of Triumph, built as part of the Arch's dedication. A much smaller location than Mangyeongdae, squeezed between 2.
Come on. Really? Are y'all seeing that? Down there. Loop there. Come on.
Hills. In its
Come on.
early years, this park contained a large decorative fountain at the entrance, a Ferris wheel, a carousel, and another Wild Mouse coaster from the same manufacturer. Seriously, North Korea can't get enough of these things.
3 of
Kaesong
them?
Youth Park was the last park to be built in the 20th century. Towards the end of the 80s, the Soviet Union's support of North Korea would begin to falter. From 1985, the USSR reduced the amount of aid it gave to North Korea, as Mikhail Gorbachev's government sought to repair its relationship with the capitalist world. And North Korea's economy sank deeper into a crisis that had been stewing since
Yep.
the 1970s. In 1989, a member of the government of East
was
Germany
3 years
misspoke
old.
in a press conference, and within a few hours, the Berlin Wall that had separated East and West Berlin
Oh,
for
yeah.
28 years fell, and the Iron Curtain was
Gorbachev,
gradually lifted
tear down
across
this wall.
Europe. And in 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed completely,
Mm-hmm.
and North Korea suddenly found itself the most isolated it had ever been. In 1994, North Korea's founder and supreme leader Kim Il-sung died and was succeeded by his son Kim Jong-il. And immediately following, the situation for the country worsened.
I can just
as
think
it
of Team
plunged
America.
into serious famine. The
That's all I can
extent of
think
which
about
has never
when I
fully
hear
been
his
known.
name.
The amusement parks of the 70s and 80s were the least of the country's concerns, and so they were left to deteriorate. No new rides were built, and maintenance on existing ones appeared to be extremely limited.
Yeah,
In the
that looks pretty
2000s,
rusty.
As the country began allowing
That
more
looks,
foreign visitors from the Western
not
world
great.
inside its borders, these parks found themselves as stops on guided tours of the restricted
Dude,
nature.
fuck that.
And
You're gonna tell him you're gonna get somebody to go on a swing ride with those fucking rusty ass chains? No, thank you.
photos of trips there began surfacing on the internet,
Fuck
highlighting
that.
their decay. The roller coasters of the late Cold War now appeared rickety and super sketchy. Some visitors commented on how the over-the-shoulder restraints in certain cars didn't feel like they locked properly. In Mangyongdae Fun Fair, propaganda blared over the park's loudspeakers as employees carried out the futile task of sweeping desolate plazas with wooden broomsticks. And
Dude, that's some fucking nightmare fuel right there.
behind them, the double-decker carousel loomed, now shrouded in
dude.
rust. In 2007,
Great place to
Kwantung
make a
Yulcha was
like a
damaged
horror movie
during
though.
flooding and was left out of operation in the park. This, of course, was far from the carefully crafted image North Korea wanted to show the world. And so, after 2 decades of what was essentially a state of operating abandonment, signs started emerging that the government was finally renovating these parks. The first of these was in 2010, when Kaesong Youth Park received a major renovation prior to a visit from then-leader Kim Jong-il, and the Ferris wheel and coaster were demolished, making
fucking
this
piece of
North
garbage.
Korea's only defunct roller coaster. In their place, the park was updated with new modern attractions, 10 of them, all shipped in from Italian manufacturer Zamperla, including a swinging pirate ship ride, a disco, the name for these giant spinning discs that rock back and forth, a
I've never been
massive
on one of
drop
those.
tower, and a swinging pendulum ride, which specifically I think is this model named the Zamperla Discovery. And the park also gained a Zamperla roller coaster, a compact flying coaster that could do barrel rolls. Once
Do a
again,
barrel
not
roll!
given a name other than the literally translated inertia airplane car. This was of course the coaster that I mentioned at the start of this video, the same model as Flamingo
looks
Land's
fun.
Hero. And not just the same model, but the exact same thing.
I've never been
layout
in a
and
coaster
everything.
where you,
Also
like,
the
lay
same
down.
as Time Warp, formerly
That looks
Tomb
really
Raider
fun.
the ride at Canada's Wonderland. So if you ever find yourself feeling disappointed that you may never get to go on a North Korean roller coaster, you may have actually already been on them. In 2011, North Korea would gain its third leader, as Kim Jong-il died and was succeeded by his son Kim Jong-un. For many years, it was
that
thought
fat
that
piece
Kim
of
Jong-il's
fuck.
successor would have been his older son Kim Jong-nam. But in 2001,
They're
he
all
was
fat
caught
pieces
trying
of
to
fuck.
use a fake passport to visit Tokyo Disneyland, and was subsequently exiled. Perhaps he was trying to get new ideas for Mangyongdae Fun Fair, but I guess we'll never know. In
Is he
his
still
early
alive?
years as leader, Kim Jong-un sought to depict himself as a youthful, friendly leader capable of modernizing the country while still holding true to its communist roots. And so, as part of this propaganda effort, his ascension to power would bring with it several projects aimed at showcasing the country's commitment to leisure, which would, of course, include the world of amusement parks. In 2012, a Western visitor to the Revolutionary Martyrs Cemetery at Mount Taesong-san took a very strange photo that appeared to show somewhere around 100 people climbing the tracks of the damaged
fuck?
Kwanseong Yulcha, potentially involved in some really hacky form of repair or maintenance work. As that year, the coaster received a new coat of paint and started operating once again
That's
after 5
a
years
fucking
of downtime.
weird photo.
And that same year, state media reported that Kim Jong-un had visited Mangyongdae Fun Fair and had heavily criticized its dilapidated state, leading to a rapid refurbishment, mainly simple repainting and repairs. This was actually an incredibly rare admission for the tightly controlled North Korean media to make, as they say he apparently walked around the park pointing out all of its flaws and calling it pathetic. In the modern era, Kaesong
Did he
Youth
point at himself?
Park is said to only operate in the evenings, between the hours of 7 PM and midnight. If you find videos or photos of the park online, you'll typically see it at this time, crowded with locals and shrouded in electric lights. This, to me, is an interesting decision because of North Korea's well-known energy crisis. The extent of the energy crisis,
Oh, shit.
much like most things in the country,
Fuck no, I had a friend that did it. He said it was like super fucking weird. Hell no. Because I wouldn't hold my tongue and I'd get myself in trouble. I called fucking who's the leader now? Ill now? He's a fat piece of shit. They get me thrown into one of those camps. Look at my arms. I can't fucking hammer rocks. You kidding me? Arms are toothpicks. No.
is unknown. But simply looking at satellite images,
It's
of
gotta be,
East
like, right
and
there,
South
right?
Korea, it's obvious that the country is struggling.
That's like the one theme park. Or no, the Pyongyang, they have 3 now. Like the one city has 3 fucking huge theme parks.
For electricity. Allegedly, North Korea still deals with frequent blackouts, and it has been reported that citizens of Pyongyang
To be fair-
are often restricted to only 2 to 3 hours of electricity.
To be fair,
So
their
the decision
their
to
power grid is
operate
probably
Kason
better
Youth
than
Park
this one in
exclusively
Texas.
at night,
Fucking pieces of
or
shit.
at
in the-
least bring foreign
Texas power
tourists there
grid.
at that time,
I
does
hate 'em.
seem to be part
Sorry.
of North Korea's propaganda campaign to
God, I
hide
hate
their
this
energy
country,
troubles.
and I hate North
In any
Korea.
case, beyond just
But I'm in this
renovating
country.
existing parks,
Some
the early
bullshit.
2010
Oh, did you hear? Were you included in the fucking war war activities special, like, whatever message on that stupid app that everyone's going insane about because they're like, oh, we just added this random dude from this magazine, and they were like talking about all the shit that was gonna happen. Like, what the fuck is happening to our king? Oh my god, I hate it all.
also saw the first new parks since the 80s being
And I
opened
still don't
in the
know,
country.
like, so I have a
2012,
theory actually about the Canada thing, annexing Canada. I think Trump said that he wanted to make Canada the 51st state as like some stupid fucking joke or something, but his ego, because he's never said he's wrong about anything, and so I think he's convinced himself to double down on it, and what turned out to be like probably a flippant joke is now like one of the centerpieces of his plan to like annex y'all, just because he fucking refuses to acknowledge that it was a joke. That's my theory, because they are pushing that real hard. Like, it's kind of fucking like weird. Like, it's sketchy how hard they're trying to push that now.
Pyongyang opened
But
Rungra
anyway.
People's Pleasure Ground in a ceremony
Ooh,
attended by
Pleasure
Kim Jong-un
ground.
himself,
Is that where they have a bunch of
flanked by, as
holes?
always, crowds of admirers.
And if you're
or
a
maybe
guy,
just
you can-
really hardcore
well,
theme park fans.
I'll leave it to
Located
your imagination.
Only 1 kilometer
pleasure
from Kaesong
ground.
Youth Park, this park is located on Rungra Island.
Why is there just
a
a
small
bunch of
island
holes
in
in the
middle
ground?
of the Taedong River that runs through the capital. An island which also contains the gigantic 1st of May Stadium, the former largest stadium in the world. A fact
Ooh.
that, unlike most things in North Korea, is actually true. Rungra People's Pleasure Ground was built before
It looks like a
Kaesong's
giant,
renovations,
like,
the first in this
pound
new
cake.
era of North Korean parks, also including rides exclusively manufactured
I want to ride one of those. I've never ridden one. I want to ride one. They look very fun.
by Zamperla. Swinging chairs, bumper cars. Hello again, Kwansong Tancha, nice to see you. Actually, the Wild Mouse coaster is slightly different from the ones before it, now being about 30 years more recent. A modern spinning version with these wider
Yeah.
4-person cars.
We watched a Disasterthon video about somebody that died from that.
Similar to the former Primeval Whirl at Disney's Animal Kingdom. This ride seems to be the exact same model as Galaxy Spin at Fun Spot America and Sidewinder Safari at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom. Rungra is home to a hedge maze, and the park
The
also
shinning.
contains a video arcade with a variety of machines. Some old Sega games, and some
Hell
more
yeah.
modern. The construction on Rungra Island in 2012 was part of a broader project
What was that,
to
F1
build
racer?
a whole recreation area next to the stadium. And so, next to the park, an indoor dolphinarium was built, where visitors can watch a dolphin show. There's also
Shit, those
a small
dolphins
water
jump
park
really fucking
with a
high.
diving
I
pool,
played Echo the
a main
Dolphin,
pool,
but still.
and a handful of tube-based slides. This water park is clearly operated seasonally, as satellite images from the winter months show the pools completely
yeah.
drained. But
Clearly.
unlike the one at Mangyongdae Fun Fair, in the summer it does appear to be operational. Water parks seem to have been the new
I need to
interest
get
of
Planet
Kim
Coaster
Jong-un
too.
around this time, as the following
Do
year
that next
the country
paycheck.
opened its most expansive water
I've
park
heard
to date,
middling
the
things about
Munsu
it, but I think I'll probably have some
Located
fun with it.
across the bridge from Rungra People's Pleasure Ground, Munsu
I'm
Water
sure it'll
Park
get better.
took the place of the older Munsu Fun Fair. Yet another park opened the same year as Kaesong Youth Park. Munsu Fun Fair was much simpler than the other parks of the era, containing only simple flat rides and a few water slides, and not much is known about it. But satellite images show that it was entirely demolished to make way for this new water park. Munsu Water Park contains both an indoor and outdoor section, and is probably one of the most interesting parks.
I like
as
the
it's
background
the first
music,
example of
saxophone.
the country moving away from the Soviet-style amusement parks towards a more modern design. The outdoor section takes its design from many of the modern Wet n Wild style parks that had been emerging since the 1980s.
They don't give
in
a
the
shit
rest of
about
the world,
that. This is all for
featuring a
looks.
central wave pool and a lazy river encircling it. Dotted around are multiple other plunge pools containing numerous body and tube slides, including a few with a plug hole design. There are multiple tool
I've never
racing
been on one of
slides,
those. I
as
haven't
well as
been
few
to a
kids
water park in
areas,
forever,
and
though.
a more traditional laned pool and a platform diving area. But what piqued my interest with this place is that the wave pool has the first signs in the country of theming. It's not much theming,
Ooh.
but the pool is shrouded in large rock spires, and behind them, snow-capped mountains. In the park's indoor section, there are another collection of slides, pools, a second smaller wave machine, and a jacuzzi, housed under 3 large glass pyramids. This is undoubtedly the
That's kinda
most
cool.
modern-looking leisure place in North Korea. It's also one of the places that might look the most familiar, as it was a location that several YouTube vloggers were taken to several years ago. The last of the major parks in Pyongyang that I want to talk about actually opened the year
What the f-
before Munsu
Oh, were
Water
those
Park,
like
but I
birds
wanted
that they
to save
released?
it because it's, in my opinion, the most interesting. As well as the park in Rungra, 2012 brought the opening of the Pyongyang Folklore Park, the closest thing North Korea had come to a true
Okay.
theme park. The theme? Well, North Korea, of course. Pyongyang Folklore Park was built just a kilometer from the oldest
Does
park,
North Korea
Taesongsan
have
Fun Fair,
pagodas?
and didn't
Is that-
contain
did,
any
Did I not
rides,
see that?
but was
I
instead
thought that was like a
model
Japanese
village.
thing.
Visitors could tour miniature recreations of famous landmarks from the capital city, such as the Arch of Triumph, the Juche Tower, the Cholima statue, and the Ryugyong Hotel, the massive skyscraper that began construction in the 1980s and was famously never finished. It's unclear if this miniature version was finished either. Honestly, I think this park was actually really cool. And not just in a weird, decaying Soviet architecture kind of cool, but an actually interesting looking place. It reminds me a lot of the photos I've seen of the old model village that used to exist in Thorpe Park in the UK. Next to the miniature area was a more standard folk
We're about to
village, a common
get
tourist attraction
hit by
in
storms
both North
pretty
and
hard.
South Korea.
There's a very good
mock-up
chance
of
I'll
a
lose
traditional
internet because I
Korean
always do.
village
Our
where
internet's
employees
shitty here.
perform for guests and teach them about Korean culture. So what's the catch? Well, you may have noticed that unlike the other parks, I've been referring to Pyongyang Folklore Park in the past tense. That's because this place is the only defunct park in North Korea, and it has a pretty sinister story behind its closure.
Ooh,
Construction
do
of the
tell.
park was managed by Kim Jong-un's uncle, Jang Sung-thek, who was alleged to have been the de facto leader of the country during Kim Jong-il's final years. In 2013, reports emerged that he had been executed on the orders of Kim Jong-un after he'd been accused of treason and largely undermining Kim Jong-un's authority. After that, his image was removed from any public-facing places, and the government attempted to scrub any mentions
That's
of his
fucking
existence.
wild.
Pyongyang Folklore Park was one of the victims of this purge, and sometime in 2016, just
Okay.
3 years after its
That's
opening,
wild.
it was demolished, leaving only the pathways behind as evidence of its existence. Those are all the main parks of North Korea, but there are a few other places, this time actually outside of Pyongyang, that I think deserve a mention because they do a good job of demonstrating the
How many
differences
people are
between the
even in
capital
North
and the
Korea?
rest
Do
of
we
the country.
know?
North Korea's second city is Hamhung on the east coast. Foreign tourism in Hamhung is far more
26
rare than
million?
it is in Pyongyang, but the Koryo Tours website does house a brief description of the area, along with photos from some of the infrequent trips. And Hamhung doesn't contain any roller coasters, but it does house the Hamhung Youth Park. And while I couldn't find any photographs of the rides there, satellite imagery seems to show
Oh,
that
we
it
can
does have the
see.
same Cold War era flat rides that are so
Yeah.
common in Pyongyang. Similarly, in the city of Chongjin, there appear to be just 2 flat rides sitting in a park. It's unclear if
that
any of these have
like
ever
a
operated.
Ferris wheel
A
or
small
something?
water park exists in the northeastern town of Rason, a port town that sits inside the Rason Special Economic Zone, an area where certain types of foreign trade not allowed in the rest of the country are permitted, mainly trade from Russia and China. And the East Coast is also home to the Songdo-won International Children's Camp, a summer camp that was renovated in 2014 to add its own
A North Korean children's camp does not evoke a very positive image in my mind.
water park, a place that invites children from around the world to visit and spend the summer in the spirit of international friendship. Children mostly from friendly nations to North Korea, like
Ah,
Tanzania,
fuck that.
Vietnam, and a large number from neighboring Russia.
No
Lastly,
way.
in the northwest of the country, there is an unknown amusement park
Hey kids, do you want to go to a children's camp in North Korea? That dude.
in
Nah.
the town of
nah.
Sinuiju.
Ain't
Sinuiju
doing
sits
that.
right on the river that marks the international border between North Korea and China, and faces the much larger Chinese city of Dandong. Dandong has become a popular tourist attraction for Chinese citizens who wish to get a glimpse of the isolated country. And so, in what to me is clearly for show, the amusement park sits on the riverbank on the North Korean side, facing into China, with a Ferris wheel
to
and
put
more
on
water
like,
slides
oh,
visible.
look at
Although, as is
us. Look
pointed
at, we
out
have
by many
theme
visitors
parks
to
and stuff.
Dandong, the Ferris
That's
wheel
why.
has never moved. There's rarely, if
Jesus.
ever, any signs of people actually visiting the unknown amusement park, and the whole place, alongside the giant apartment block that was built right next to it, looks completely
Yeah.
abandoned.
It's just like a facade.
When I first set out to make this video, one thing I imagined I'd be saying when I analysed these places is that these parks are very clearly just tools of the famous North Korean propaganda machine. Places that are only open when foreigners are around to sell this false image of the country. It's true that the only locations of any sort of amusement rides in North Korea are in places that are visible to foreigners. And there are
Yeah,
multiple
of course.
accounts from foreigners on visits to places like Mangyongdae Fun Fair who talk about spotting busloads of locals being herded into the park just ahead of them in an apparent attempt to make the place look busy. But in the research that I've now
Imagine
done,
that.
I believe that some of these places are used legitimately by North Korean citizens. This is a satellite image of Taesongsan Fun Fair in 2023, and this is another one of Kaesong Youth Park in 2024. In
I mean, to be fair, what we could probably count the amount of people. 30, 40, 15. So like 10 there. Probably like 60 people total, maybe.
both of these images, we
Guesstimating.
can see people inside the parks. And that's important
I
because these
guess.
images were taken at a time when foreign tourists were not allowed into the country. So these must be locals visiting the place for real. The Taesongsan image in particular is really interesting because it gives you a much better idea of the crowd management in the park. By which I mean,
Yeah, the
there is none.
lines,
It's overly simplistic to just dismiss North Korean amusement parks as fake. what they tell you about the country is far more complicated. One thing that's very noticeable to me is just how close together they all are. There are, of course, those smaller parks outside of the capital, but every single significant one is situated within about 10 kilometers of one
That's
another,
wild.
all
Okay,
within
there
the
were
bounds
6
of
of them?
Pyongyang. Of course, this isn't
Or there
all that
were anyway.
confusing when you understand the structure of North Korean society. It's generally accepted that North Korea's capital is home only to the most privileged in the country. It's here where all of North Korea's wealth is concentrated, and that can be seen through everything. Residents have access to better roads, better schools, better housing, and yes, better amusement parks. Now, you can argue that this is true for many other countries as well. Lots of places have problems
Right.
with wealth concentration, but unlike those other countries, North Korean citizens can't just move to Pyongyang for better opportunities. You have to have permission to do so. Permission that usually requires
Look at those fat
extreme
fucks.
loyalty to the ruling party and the Kim regime.
Pieces of shit.
25% of North Korea's population are estimated to be official party members. But in Pyongyang, this number is 99%. Residents of other cities also can't freely visit Pyongyang either, as freedom of movement within the country is severely restricted. And in this way, in a country where an estimated 60% of its citizens live in poverty, North Korea's amusement parks...
Why don't... I know this is weird and like capitalist American imperialism, but why don't we just go and fucking take those people out and then save all the other people that are subjected there? I don't know, because I guess we're afraid they have missiles, I guess, or something, or I guess they're allies with China and that would fuck us up with Chinese relationships.
are not for normal people, but for the
It just seems
country's
weird that
political
we
elites. A lot of these
any-
places were built during that
any
late
country, like,
70s, early
allows
80s
this,
era, when
like,
North
when
Korea
it's
was
clearly
still being propped up
super
by the
fucked.
Soviet Union. And so
But
that
whatever.
Soviet style of amusement park was carried over. But after the collapse of the Soviet Union and the decades of economic turmoil for North Korea, these parks are still sitting in the country just as they were when they were built,
Is that-
just as so much of the country's infrastructure in general is trapped in the past. And when the renovations and new parks were eventually built in 2012, well, again, these exclusively happened to the ones in the capital and one location specifically designed with foreigners in mind, not anywhere where the regular North Korean will be able to take advantage of. The other
Sure.
point I want to make about these parks and about North Korea in general is just how difficult it is to find any reliable information on what they're actually like. Information about anything in the country is heavily restricted and poisoned by government propaganda. But
Yeah.
also outside of the
Hey,
country,
it's like America
often
now.
swamped by a mess of sensationalist articles and made-up
Imagine that.
stories. It would be way too easy
It's
to
like
make
America.
a video needlessly dunking on North Korea. Trying to get as close as possible to the truth is far more interesting. But the core of it is, truth is not really a thing that exists when you're talking about North Korea.
It's like
Finding out what's
America.
really going on in such
Jesus.
a secretive nation is a nearly impossible task.
Well, that's not like America. We don't keep our secrets. We fucking invite everybody into our war plans and shit like that.
And that
apparently.
secrecy extends to everything, including their amusement parks. What are your thoughts on North Korean amusement parks? And what do you think they say
It's actually
about the
really
country
interesting.
as a whole? I hope you don't mind the more serious tone this video took towards the end. North Korea is such a deeply complex topic, but that's what makes it so
I mean, it's really
fascinating
not.
to
It's
me.
just like a fucking dictatorship that's super xenophobic. I don't like. I don't think it's very complex.
But more typical
maybe it
theme
is.
park topics and some more light-hearted stories will continue on this channel throughout the year. Other than that, if you're not already, please consider
I don't think I'm subscribed to this guy.
subscribing, as more
yeah.
videos about the world of theme parks are coming in the future.
Very
and as
cool.
always, I'll see you next time.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna hop off because there's a storm coming, and I haven't eaten dinner yet or anything. I should probably do that. I hear people need to eat to survive. I don't know if it's true. I'm gonna try it, but I may be back later. I may not. If not, I'll be back tomorrow night with some drinks and Friday shenanigans. Yeah, it's getting pretty windy out there. Okay, well, if you're watching, I appreciate it. And again, I may or may not be back later. But anyway, all right. Love y'all guys.